So I was naming today's sermon, and I had two slide options. I was either going to name it Dying Well, as it's entitled, or I was going to name it How to Die. And I realized that sounded pretty dark, like how to die as a sermon, and it might be confusing for people, so I stuck with Dying Well. I probably think I made a good choice. But in this passage, Jesus is talking to his followers, his disciples, and they have just said, you are God's son, you are the Messiah, you are not just a human Jesus, you are God in human form. 100% God, 100% man. It's a mystery and yet beautiful. And so right after this, Jesus then tells them, hey, if you guys want to follow me, here's what you need to do. If you want to be one of my disciples, here's what you need to do. So read with me here, starting in verse 23. He then said to the crowd, if any one of you wants to be my follower, you must give up your own way, take up your cross daily, and follow me. If you try to hang on to your life, you will lose it. But if you give up your life for my sake, you will save it. And what do you benefit if you gain the whole world and lose yourself or are destroyed? Pause there for a moment. So in this passage, Jesus is telling people, hey, if you want to follow me, here's what you need to do. Here's what it will be like to follow me. Now, there are different times where you're trying to persuade someone to follow you or to purchase something from you or to get behind an idea you have. It's basically like you are doing sales a little bit. I'll give you an example. If you sign up for the military to be in the Army, they have a recruiter. And the recruiter meets with you and they tell you, hey, if you join the military, this is what it'll be like and that's what it'll be like. And here's how much money you can make or how many years. They basically give you options. But their goal is they want you to sign up for the military. They're trying to recruit you. And here is Jesus trying to recruit followers. And rather than saying to them, hey guys, if you follow me, your life will be super easy and comfortable. And you'll just be relaxing. I'm going to basically make all your problems go away. It's going to be the most wonderful, carefree, happy life ever. Okay? That sounds like, sign me up. That sounds pretty easy. Okay? That sounds really wonderful. But instead, he says this interesting sales pitch here. He says, if you want to be my follower, 1, give up your own way. 2, take up your cross daily. 3, follow me. I want to break this down and talk about each of these 3 parts today. First, let's talk about this. Jesus says you must give up your own way. What does that mean? Well, if you go to Burger King, their phrase is, at BK, you can have it your way. Basically like, hey, you come to Burger King, you want your pickle with you want your pickle with no burger, is what I was about to say. You want your burger with no pickle, you can have your burger with no pickle. You want it ketchup only, get ketchup only. You want mustard, and you want your mustard on a bun and just the bun. You can have that. It's Burger King, have it your way. You go to Subway or Chipotle, they make it to order however you want it. And I think we get this idea of, I want my life to be about me, to be about what I want. And you hear this in culture all the time. So many movies, so many songs, so many ideas are this, okay? Hey, pursue happiness. Whatever makes you feel good, go do that thing. If you have a dream and it makes you happy, just follow that dreams. Wish upon a shooting star. That's more like Disney. But anyway, you get the idea. There is this idea in our culture saying, do what you want. Whatever makes you happy. Pursue happiness. It's literally in our Constitution. Or is it life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? That's the Declaration, right? Yeah, sorry, I got it wrong. Anyway, that is literally in our founding documents, that we are entitled to that right. Now, to say that our purpose in life is to be happy is to miss your purpose in life. It is not wrong to want to be happy. It is not wrong to be happy in a moment. But it is wrong when you desire happiness more than you desire doing what is right. It is wrong when you desire happiness over godliness. It is wrong when you put your own feelings or your own comfort above what is right. And here is Jesus saying to his disciples, if you follow me, I need you to realize something. The purpose of your life is not you any longer. It's greater than you. The purpose of your existence isn't just your time here on earth. It's your time beyond this earth. You see, this is not all that there is. And that's why Jesus is saying, hey, if you try to cling to this life and put all of your purpose and meaning in this life, you're going to miss it. Because as you try to grab onto this life, you're going to lose the life that comes after your time here on earth. He's trying to make them realize there's more to this life than just themselves. And here's why Jesus can say this. If you still don't believe me, if you're like Barrett, I disagree. I think the reason that we exist is to be happy and comfortable and live the best possible life we can be. Best possible life you can have. I want to ask you something. Did Jesus, in his time on earth, live a comfortable life? Yes or no? He was homeless. He was beaten. He was mocked publicly. He was betrayed by his best friends. He was not born into a rich family. He was literally born in an animal trough with a bunch of animals around, not even in a hotel, not in a hospital, not in a palace. He commanded no armies. And yet, here is Jesus, who is living a life of purpose and meaning more so than any human that ever existed, who changed the world more than anyone else. But his purpose in coming to earth was not, you know what, I want to make every decision based on what will temporarily make me happy or temporarily make me comfortable. What he was saying is, my purpose here on earth is to do the will of God on earth. My purpose on earth is to obey God and love people well and obey him. All the commandments can be reduced to this. Jesus said this. All the commandments come down to this. You're supposed to love and worship God and love people. That's it. All the 10 commandments fit within that metric. If you can love God and love people well, you're doing right. And God is now saying, Jesus is saying, I expect the same of my followers as I have exemplified. I've denied myself. I've done things that are hard and uncomfortable, and now I invite you to do so. And at first, this doesn't sound exciting. This doesn't sound exciting. You're like, wow, not doing what I want or doing things that are challenging, that doesn't make me want to obey. That doesn't make me want to follow. But it reminds me of this interesting ad campaign. Years ago, I shouldn't even say years ago, but a while back there were infomercials. You guys know what infomercials are? It's like a commercial on TV where it's like, for $9.95, you can buy this product and it will change your life. And, you know, there was this entire idea of products for fitness that would get you in shape for the least amount of work. And it was like, just 10 minutes a day on our ab blaster or whatever, you know, will make you like, you know, a fitness. And they'd have this like amazing like fitness model, like, yeah, you can look like me in 10 minutes a day. And here's the funny thing about that. People would buy that product. It's like, great, 5 minutes a day, I look like that super awesome model. People would buy it and they didn't look like the model. Why? Because that model doesn't spend 5 minutes a day on that thing. That model probably spends hours and hours eating healthy, working out, doing all these other exercises, and then maybe also using this product. And then another ad campaign came along that changed things. And it was a system called P90X. And there was a founder named Tony Horton. And here was his philosophy. He said, we are going to tell people the truth. And it was like, oh, what? Can you do that? It's like, yeah, we're going to tell people the truth. If you want to change, you are going to have to work hard. And he's like, you're going to work 90 minutes a day for this program. And if you work 90 minutes a day and commit to the program, then you will see results. He wasn't trying to sell people on, hey, you know, least amount of work will get you where you want to go. He's like, no, that isn't going to work. And they literally mocked those other commercials in the ad where he's like, hey, those products don't work. You have to do this. You have to commit. There's some sort of sacrifice involved. And Jesus is being honest with his followers. Hey, if you want to follow me, It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be cupcakes and rainbows and, I don't know, following your dreams, wishing on stars. It will be challenging, but you will see results. You will change if you follow me, and you will find purpose and meaning. And so Jesus is daring and challenging his disciples to find something in their life greater than just their temporary happiness or temporary pleasure, to find meaning and purpose. Then he keeps going, and he says, you must give up your own way. And then he says, you must take up your cross daily. And then he says, follow me. Let's talk about that. Take up your cross daily. The Roman Empire ruled most of the world at this time. If you ever have studied world history, you see the map of the Roman Empire, they had this just massive empire. And one of the ways that they would keep people in line is that if you broke the rules of the Romans, or you tried to rebel against them, they would execute you in a very public way. But rather than just kill you, what they wanted to do is they wanted to make it last as long as possible, so as many people saw you die as possible. So what they would do is they would literally execute you outside of the city by the road leading into the city, so that everybody in the city could see you up on a high place, hung on a cross, dying, and they could realize, I don't want to make the same mistake they did, and you would obey. Or if you're coming into the city, you would see the people hanging there on the cross, dying slowly. And you'd think twice before you disobeyed them. Jesus died hanging on a cross. He was mocked, he was beaten, he was accused of a crime that he did not commit and yet found guilty. Then he was dragged outside of the city. He had to actually carry his own cross up the hill. Now, I want you to think about how almost ironic this is. You are forced to carry the very instrument of your torture and death. You're forced to pick it up and then carry it up a hill. There was a hill called Golgotha where Jesus would be executed. And you might have seen pictures of Jesus carrying a cross, but it actually wasn't the traditional cross that you might see that he carried. Because usually when they executed someone, what they would do was they'd have a center beam to the cross, and they would have it up on top of the hill. And then they would have a cross beam. Whoa, that was close. They had a cross beam where your arms would be stretched out. And so you usually carried the cross beam up the hill to the execution spot because both beams were too heavy for you to carry. And they wanted to have the lumber up there. And so Jesus very likely only had that cross beam on his back, and he would be forced to carry that up the hill. He carried it up the hill, and then when he arrived there, he was nailed to the cross by his wrists and by his ankles and forced to hang there until he died. Now here's the incredible part about this. Jesus allowed this to happen to himself. He accepted and chose for this. At any moment, he could have snapped his fingers and thousands of angels could have delivered him. He could walk on water. He commanded waves and oceans. He raised people from the dead. At any moment, he could have delivered himself from this death. But God said, Jesus, this is the way in which you will save humanity and save the world. I have a purpose for your life here on earth, to save all of humanity from their sin, to give them a chance to be saved. And Jesus, though in the garden he prayed, and he's like, God, this is going to hurt. I don't want to do this, but God, your will above my own will. I'm placing what you want for my life, God, above what is comfortable and easy. And Jesus literally embraced his death. He grabbed hold of the cross and went up the hill. Now, he didn't do it with some sort of artificial smile on his face like, this is great. No, it's painful and terrible and horrible. But he did have joy in his heart because he knew what it accomplished. You see, we are willing to endure pain or suffering or hardship when we know it accomplishes something good. You are willing to suffer when you know I'm going to get something for my suffering that is greater than my suffering. You're willing to endure that. And it can be small or it can be large. I was wrestling with my kids yesterday, and I was in gym shorts, and I'm running around on the carpet, like on my knees. And like my knees are getting scraped up. Now, was I in pain or dying? No, okay? It was just uncomfortable. But my kids were giggling and thought it was the best thing ever to play horsey. And so my son jumps on my back, and he's like joking me, like, oh, that doesn't feel great. And he's like, right on my Adam's apple. So there were moments of uncomfortability or even slight pain. But seeing my kids have fun was worth that pain. I'm like, oh, I'd gladly feel pain so they could do that. That was a lot of fun. So I found something greater than my pain, my children's joy, and so I was willing to, in a very small way, sacrifice for them. How much more so Jesus looking at me and you, saying, I love them. And I love them more than my own life. And I love God more than my own life. So I am willing, because of my love for God and love for people, to give up my own way and suffer and die for them. Jesus found a purpose greater than his own comfort. And he found joy in sacrificing for the right reasons. And now Jesus invites you and me as Christians to do the same. He didn't tell the disciples, hey, you're going to live in mansions here on earth. He didn't tell them, hey, you're never going to suffer or feel pain at all. Actually, he told them the opposite. He said, hey, if you follow me, there's going to be pain and suffering and difficulty, but take heart, I have overcome the world. Take heart, there's a purpose for it. And then he says, after your life on earth, you will live in paradise. You will one day live in a mansion. You will one day experience what it is like to never have pain or suffering again. But that's not in this life here on earth, that's in the next. You see, if you live for just this life here on earth, that is all you will get. But if you live for more than just this life, you will receive more than just this life. So Jesus is saying to them, embrace your suffering, embrace your hardship, and accept the difficulty that is before you. And there is a part of us that cringes when there's something difficult before us, but there's a part of us that feels purpose and meaning in it. Let me explain what I mean. The greatest warriors are those who accept that there is pain and suffering and even the likelihood of them dying, but they have found a cause worth suffering and dying for. There's a book, it's a true story on what's called the Band of Brothers. They were in World War II, some soldiers who were in a parachute division. And what they would do is literally on the day of D-Day, when we are landing on the boats, on the ground, you've probably seen images of people landing in watercraft and the gates dropping and they're charging onto a beach. Well, while that was happening, behind the enemy lines, hours before that, parachuters were dropped into enemy territory where they're surrounded by the enemy. And they were fighting before even D-Day happened. Anyway, the movie is showing that scene right before they get on the plane to then jump out of the plane and go into enemy territory. And the officers and commanders are walking around saying, hey guys, make sure that you filled out your will before you get on here, so when you die, people know what stuff you have, who to give it to. And also make sure your life insurance policy is filled out so that your mom and dad or your family or your friends or maybe your wife if you're married, so they get some money when you die or if you die. And you saw the look on these young men's faces. Some of them were 18, 19, 20 years old. And they're filling out this paperwork with this look of, I could die tonight. I could die in the next 24 hours. And they had to have a literal signature saying, I accept that I might die and that my stuff here on earth would be gone. And my family would be without me. And the reality sets in. And what's so incredible is those men then got on the plane anyway, knowing the risk, knowing the sacrifice, saying, destroying this evil and saving or protecting the people that I love is greater than my comfort and my safety. I am willing to risk my life and my safety for something greater. They found something worth dying for. Or even worth living for, you could say. There's another image that comes to mind of a soldier named William Wallace. There's a recreation of a speech that he might have given before a battle. And it's a true story that all these British soldiers showed up to take away or to stop the Scottish people from rebelling against England. And the English had far more soldiers than them. They were better trained. They had better weapons. And the Scottish were afraid. And in the movie, William Wallace, their leader, is talking to them, giving a speech to them. And they're saying to William Wallace, hey, the odds are against us. They have more guys than we do. And if we fight today, we might die. But if we go home, we'll live. And William Wallace says, yes, you're right. If you run away right now and go home, you'll live. And if you fight, you might die. And he says, but even if you run, eventually you will die. Run as far as you want, but you cannot escape death. And one day when you are old and you are gray and you're sitting in your deathbed, do you really want to look back on this moment and say that it was not worth my life to fight for freedom, to fight against our enemies, and to protect the ones I love? Or are you willing to say that protecting the people you care about and fighting against your enemies is greater than your safety? And he inspires the men to willingly, purposefully follow him into the battle, and many of them died. I shouldn't say many of them died. The reality is all of them eventually died. It's funny when we say the phrase like, oh, someone's life was saved, and it's like they were. Like, maybe there was a fire and a fireman goes in and saves them and pulls them out. Awesome, they were saved. That's great. But saved for a time. Because eventually they will die, and eventually all of us will perish. We must accept that reality that our life on earth does not last forever. And before you say, wow, Barrett, that's a super depressing thing to say, no, it's a truthful thing to say. And once you embrace the truth that your life here on earth will not last forever, hopefully it challenges you to not just live for your life here on earth. And that leads to the next point, final one, where Jesus says, follow me. And he says, if you try to hang on to your life, you will lose it. But if you give up your life for my sake, you will save it. Jesus is saying, if you live for just your life here on earth, that's all you will get. And it's almost like this. Imagine your life is like an hourglass and there's sand slowly falling from the top to the bottom. You don't know how much sand is in there. You don't know how much time you get on this earth. We always think it's more than probably is. But the tighter you try to squeeze sand, the easier it slips through your fingers, actually. If you try to grip it, it just literally comes out of the cracks in your fingers. Jesus is saying, if you try to hold on to this life, it's always going to win. Death has a 100% success rate. We all die. So rather than live your life to get a bunch of stuff or to be remembered by people for a time, why don't you live for something better, something greater? Because if you live for money, you'll eventually die and all it will go away. If you live to be famous, eventually everyone will forget your name. But if you live with this in mind, I want to honor God and I want to love people. If that is your purpose in life, to bring heaven to earth, then when you get to heaven, you will look back on your life and say, I'm proud of what I did. There's joy in my heart. And I was willing to choose the right thing, even if it was the hard thing, even if it was difficult. That inspires us. See, no one is inspired when we embrace or pursue comfort. We're inspired by sacrifice for something greater. Now, let me clarify this. We're not inspired by pain. This is part of my guys' night sermon, so sorry, guys, I'm using an analogy. But we're not inspired by someone who just inflicts pain on themselves. We're inspired by someone who endures pain for purpose. For example, if I go over here to this wall and I take my shoe off and I just start kicking the wall as hard as I can, and like my foot's all bloodied and toes are pointing the wrong direction, you won't be like, wow, so inspiring. What a hero. Just, wow, that's just inspiring. Like, that's not inspiring, okay? I'm just injuring myself and I'm an idiot. I'm a fool. But if there was an opportunity for you to risk your life for someone else, that inspires you. I don't know if you saw this, but a couple days ago, a fireman passed away in Sterling, Virginia, just down the road. They were responding to a house call, trying to save lives, and a fireman lost their life. They endured pain, they endured suffering, and they gave up their life. That inspires us. Why? Because that individual chose, I am putting the safety of someone else above my own. I am recognizing that I have a calling, I have a job, I have a duty to give up my life for someone else. That moves us and inspires us because they are choosing the hard thing. Others are running out of a burning house and they are running into it. And so when we hear or see someone's example of dying well, of choosing hardship, that inspires us. And so that leads to Jesus then saying, follow me. Because Jesus is not asking you to do anything that he did not do himself. You might say, well, if I follow Jesus, people might mock me. Jesus knows what it was like to be mocked. Well, if I follow Jesus, I might have my friends desert me. Jesus had his best friend betray him. He knows what that's like. Well, if I follow Jesus, I might not make as much money as I would have before. Jesus was homeless. Well, if I follow Jesus, we could say so many things there. But Jesus tells us the cost and the difficulty of following him. And he says, what I offer you is greater than the challenge that following me will be. You see, sometimes you have to be humble enough to say, I know that God's way is better than my own. My children, my daughter just yesterday woke up, we're sitting downstairs, and she's like, I'm hungry. And I'm like, okay, let's get some food. And she goes, I want candy. And I'm like, well, it's breakfast. Like, you had candy before bed. That was a bad decision. We can't have candy for every meal. And she starts pouting. And she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, we can't have candy. And she goes, why? And I'm like, well, like, you need actual like vitamins and minerals and protein, and you need like vegetables, and you need all this other food. And she's like, but I want candy. And she's confused. Like, if you love me, why wouldn't you give me candy all the time? And the idea is because that is not what is best for you. I know what's best for you, trust me. And sometimes we look at God and we're like, God, don't you want me to be comfortable? And he's like, sometimes. I mean, one day you will be in the comfort of heaven and you will have perfect comfort and ease. But until then, I desire for you purpose over comfort. I had a student come up to me last service and say, well, Barrett, how do I find my purpose? What is my purpose? Can you clarify that for me? And I said, your purpose is given to you by the one who made you. You can't find your own purpose. You are given a purpose or shown your purpose by the one who made you. And God is the one who made you. And he tells you, this is your purpose. This is your meaning. This is why you were made. You were made to give glory to God and honor him. And that bothers some people because they're like, nope. The purpose and meaning of my life is me. I'm the main character, if you will. I'm the person who directs my life. If you actually believe that, you will be very disappointed in the way things will end. Live in such a way that when your life is over, you are proud of the way that you lived, and you look forward to your life beyond this. My grandfather is 96 years old. His name is Jacob Abraham Ryder. He's lived a crazy, awesome life. He fought in Korea and was shot down in a plane and survived. Pretty thankful for that because I wouldn't be here if he didn't. He has been so instrumental in raising his daughters and loving his wife so well. He's an amazing role model in my life, and he loves Jesus so much. And he's taught me so much. But when I meet with him now at 96, there isn't much to look forward to in your life when you're 96. Meaning he's not thinking, oh man, I can't wait till I retire or have kids or grandkids. Or there's not much to look forward to because he knows his life is almost over. But he doesn't walk around feeling sorry for himself. And he also, I have never heard him say this phrase. I've never heard him say, oh, I just wish I could go back to being young again. You know what I do hear him say, though? I hear him say this, oh, man, I can't wait till I get to be with Jesus. Man, I look forward to being with him, to being reunited with my wife who's already passed away. You see, my grandfather lived a good life. Wasn't perfect, but it was good. And he served the Lord to a degree where he is not just gripping the sands of his life, trying to hold tightly to it as it slips through his fingers. He's saying, I have released my life because I realize there is a life beyond this one on earth. I'm not just living or existing for the moment. I'm living in the moment for something greater, for eternity. And he looks forward to being in heaven, where his knees don't hurt anymore and his eyesight's good again. And he's at peace with the Lord. You see, that inspires me and it challenges me to live my life now in a way that is honoring and pleasing to God, to live with purpose and not just be concerned with my comfort, to live God's way and not just to live my own. Because if you think that you know better for your life than God, you have already made a massive mistake. I'll be honest, the sermon I'm preaching today is not necessarily a lovey-dovey sermon. It's not going to make you feel all warm and tingly inside and be like, wow, I just left and I just have this bubbling joy in my heart. No, it's not. It's a challenging sermon. And that's okay. It's kind of like my daughter. Sometimes you have sermons that are like candy and sometimes sermons are like Brussels sprouts, okay? There are challenging sermons and there are good ones. And I hope that you can realize the good in the challenge of this sermon, in the words of Jesus. Sometimes he's encouraging his disciples, saying, hey, take heart, I've overcome the world. Take heart, I am with you always, even to the end of the age. And here he's saying, hey, take heart. You're going to have challenges and trials, and you're going to have to march up this hill with me. But there will be an end. And once you reach that end, you will be thankful for every sacrifice you made. You will not be in heaven and ever regret choosing what was right over what was easy or comfortable. Never. Now again, I'm not telling you that it's wrong or sinful to be comfortable or happy in your life. I don't want you to go home and like maybe you smile or enjoying your, I don't know, Popeye's chicken sandwich on the drive home and you're like, this is good. Oh no, I'm supposed to be very sad and depressed. No, I'm not saying that. Enjoy it, okay? I'm saying that the purpose of your life shouldn't simply be comfort. It should be more. And you must accept your death so that you can fight bravely in your life on earth. The people that fear death the most, I don't see enjoying life more. It's the people that accept, yep, I will die one day. And I embrace that. I accept that. And I also believe that I will live again in heaven. I also have noticed this. The people that are most selfish are actually, and this is obviously a generalization, but the people that I've encountered that are the most selfish, thinking about themselves the most, trying to be happy, are usually the most depressed and miserable people. And the people that I know that are actually the most joyful and the most kind are the people that are sacrificing for others. The people that care about others more than themselves. So, might we, as Jesus has told us, follow these words? Might we give up our own way, take up our cross daily, and follow him? Let's pray. Father God, I ask that we would be given by your Holy Spirit the strength to do this. to do what is challenging, what is right. And Lord, I pray for grace for when we make mistakes. I pray that we would not leave discouraged, but encouraged. That you are with us, that you have set the example as our commanding officer and charging into this life and enduring its hardships before us. And I pray that we would find purpose and meaning in doing the will of God and loving others more than ourselves. Might we realize that whether we are a plumber or a pastor, whatever we do in this earth can be pleasing to you. Might we find our purpose and meaning not in how many people know us or how much money we have, but in how in alignment we are with your will, God. We love you. It's in your name we pray. And everyone said, amen.